Welcome back to the channel for episode 3 of installing our Ets Turbo Kit on our 22 WRX. In the last episode, we basically got everything taken off. We got the oil drain, turbos off, obviously intake, exhaust. Everything is off the car, charge pipe is off. I left you guys on baby cliffhanger. We're actually going to drop the oil pan right now and we're going to see if we have any RTV in our pickup. And we're going to clean it out, reseal it the correct way. Once everything's sealed up, we can get some oil back in the car and then we can get the turbo mounted. So, enough talking. Let me get you guys set up and let's get this oil pan dropped. Let's go. So we're under the car and I got all the bolts off. Obviously it's not moving. I tried to get my wedge under there and I mean it's not budging at all. So I'm almost thinking this is a lost cause. I feel like I should just put the bolts back in. It's obviously it's not leaking. I don't have any fear of this thing leaking. I'm just a little bit unsure about the RTV thing, but I don't have another oil pan. I'm sure I could get this off if like I damaged the pan a little bit, maybe prying at it. But I don't have another oil pan and don't really know if there's any like in stock anywhere. So I'm going to put all the bolts back in. I'm going to torque them down to spec and we're going to move on to our next step. So sorry if that was a little bit of a letdown from the last episode, but I'm just going to damage the pan if I take this thing off. And if I had another pan, I'd really have no issue just putting the wedge in here and then just start hammering. But yeah, as of right now, let's just get these bolts back in, torque it all back down, and move on to our next step. So I just wanted to go over that quick little time lapse. I just jumped into doing some of the spark plugs. I wanted to show you what my plugs look like just after, I don't know, 12, 13,000 miles. And this is an OEM plug. So the plug's a little dirty. And then we have a little bit of discoloration on the porcelain on the back side. But I got the same plug, same part number. So we are good to go to test this one out. And then here's the part number for the plug I used, and I'll put a link in the description below where I got these. Let's get this installed. Let's go. All right, so we have the turbo on the bench right here. It's got my gaskets just hanging out, just make sure I got the right ones. So I like to call this the dressed up turbo. I thought I was recording, but I did skip this one little section here. So obviously we do have our wastegate remounted with the bracket. And then we have our wastegate arm all the way across, little spring on the bottom with a clip. So for the wastegate, you do want to, like, on the instructions, which very brief instructions, but they say just in the center of the threads is the base adjustment. So we're like basically right in the middle of the center of the threads. So we were good to go with that. Brackets tight, everything's tight. We have our oil feed line on, and this is for our oil box, coolant line. another oil line, and then all the way in the back we have this tube that comes out, and this is going to be our water line for the back of the turbo. So everything's all dressed up and it's ready to go on the car. I don't think there's anything left to prep to get the car ready. So everything looks pretty good underneath. We got the bracket on the front of the engine removed so we could fit the new turbo. But I think we're ready to just slide the new turbo in place, put the new hardware on with our gaskets, and continue moving on. So let's get to the, I guess, one of the most exciting parts. Let's get the turbo put on. Let's go. Alright, so we just got the turbo in, and right when I got it in, I just really wanted to make sure that the charge pipes and the intake and everything would line up. So I went ahead and just got that stuff thrown on, and also got the tile blow-off valve on. Let's go into the car and I'll show you everything that we've done so far. Alright, so looking from the top, you can see we got our charge pipe here. It is bolted to the front timing cover down here, just like the other front mount pipe. And then we have our new pipe here. Our intake is here. I just have a rag there just so nothing falls in. We have our old hardware here for a box. I did test fit the box a few times to make sure everything clears and the clamps are oriented in the right way. And then when you come down here, we have our recirc here, our tile QRJ, our V-band on. I don't have this thing tight yet because I do want to, we still need to get this hose ran. That's basically the last project we need to do on this besides just putting the air filter and everything on. So I don't have this tight yet because I don't know the orientation, but obviously super easy. And then I got this tightened up and everything. Alright, so going underneath, you can see we got the turbo, we got all the lines hooked up, everything literally just like fell into place. Wastegate is plugged in. Let's go to the front. Alright, so here's a better angle. So here's our water line that we had in the back. That literally just lined right up with our stock line. We just transferred this over from the stock one, and that just goes up to the stock location up here. We did get our little bracket on so we can mount our hose to keep that out of the way. And everything else just like lined up. Everything just kind of hooked up. Everything should be tight. Obviously, once we get our first start in, we'll see if anything leaks. We do have to add coolant. I already added oil when we did drain it. But this is how everything looks. The AOS is hooked up. This is our one vent hose. Obviously, we got to get this exhaust installed. So once we get that installed, the intake hooked up, and run the blow-off valve vacuum line hose, we're basically ready to start. And then jumping to the top real quick, this blow-off valve line, it's going to go underneath the alternator. So we'll take our cover off, we'll take our belt off, and then take the alternator out. There is a hose back there that we will cut. They did supply us with a T. So this is basically all that we have left. So we just have to get the T, put the two clamps on it. We have the hose to run. And then with the blow-off valve, I did want to mention, I did have to trim it just a little bit. I do have a little hose cutter. I cut it as straight as I could, but everything obviously fits perfect. But I did have to trim it just a little bit. It was just like pushing on this V-band, and it really wasn't lining this up the way that I wanted it. But just a little trimming, and solved that little thing. But I mean, this is all that we have left here. We have our intake, the coupler, our blow-off valve hose, and then technically we could start it, but we are going to get our J-pipe put on, and then I have the tail section on the other side of the car. But there's our J-pipe. It is already wrapped, and I will transfer the cat armor that I have on the catalytic converter. I'll put that on this one, but I am going to keep the exhaust wrap on this, so whoever buys this exhaust will already have a nice little exhaust wrap on the front section. I didn't do it on the tail section. It just seemed pointless because there's really nothing back there, and we're just trying to keep all the heat in the exhaust and not in the engine bay, and this is like way past it. But other than that, let's get this finished up and we'll get our first start in, hopefully in this video, but let's start working. Let's go. All right, so we got the alternator off. We did have to loosen up the tensioner a little bit to get it off, but this is the hose that they're telling us to cut. We're going to cut this right in the middle, put the T in, put the clamp on, and then we're going to run the hose back out through here, and we'll hook it up to our blow-off valve on the bottom. So let's get that finished up and get our alternator back on, and then we'll move on to our exhaust. All right, fast forward, we are buttoned up. Just got the ECU flashed. So wants me to ignition off. Then click continue. And it's doing some more updates. Okay, so I'm a little nervous for this first start. We just got the ECU flash. The last part was just keep it in the off position for 15 seconds. So obviously it's been longer than 15 seconds, but I just checked everything over. Everything looks like everything's buttoned up. So we're gonna see what's gonna happen. I'm gonna get you guys set up behind the car so you can get an exhaust clip of what it sounds like with the ETS kit. And then I'm probably just going to jump under the car and check for leaks, and we'll go from there. But really excited for this, but also a little nervous, so we'll see what happens. Let's go. All right, so we got the coolant filled up in our reservoir. We're going to prime the oil system a few times to get oil in through everything, because we just took a bunch of stuff off. So to do that, just hold the gas pedal down and then try to start the car. So we'll do that a few cycles and then we'll get the car started. got the coolant burping away. Look underneath. No leaks, no drips. Everything's tight. So far, so good. Alright, so this is the next day. It did get kind of late, and I did finish just buttoning the car back up. Obviously, you see the car's on the ground, bumpers off, bumpers back on, wheels are on. I actually went for my first little test drive, just like literally down the street and back. Everything sounds normal. It doesn't sound very different as far as like there's no little creaks or anything. Only hit about 1 pound of boost just driving, and the turbo is definitely pretty loud, so that definitely makes me really excited. In the next episode, we will be doing some driving clips and maybe some tuning with Mikey. But that's where I'm going to end this video. Until next time, see you guys.